Hey, hi, hello. My name is Lydia. Welcome to my channel. If you are interested in true crime, I hope you stick around. A special thank you and hello to my returning subscribers. I am so happy to have you here. Happy New Year to all, although this wish is coming to you a little late. I had to take a break from recording content over the holidays due to work and family activities, but I am back and I plan to keep creating true crime videos for this channel. Sometimes it's an interesting path that gets me to which case I want to talk about on this channel. Now stay with me because I'm going to do a short recap of one true crime case and then introduce the main topic of this video. I had been thinking a lot about cases in which a pregnant woman is murdered by her husband or significant other. We, as true crime content consumers, know being pregnant and in a relationship that is falling apart and with a man that is already prone to violence is a dangerous spot for a woman to be in. And that thinking led me to revisit a case I was already familiar with, the case of Michael Fletcher, a Michigan lawyer who murdered his pregnant wife Leanne in 1999. Michael Fletcher was a real piece of work, a guy who really thought he had outsmarted the investigators and was going to get away with murder, but thankfully he did not. A quick recap of that case. Michael had met Leanne while he was in college and on his way to becoming an attorney. Leanne was a local girl and beautiful, and quickly their relationship moved to marriage. Leanne gave birth to a daughter and was happy staying at home, taking care of their family. But Michael Fletcher was a hotshot and began having affairs and thinking that he deserved someone better than Leanne. Of course, he was unwilling to totally move on from his wife and let her go, and so Michael strung her along, and ultimately his wife Leanne became pregnant with their second child after an initial separation in the marriage. Around that same time, Michael was having a relationship with a judge. Remember, he worked as an attorney, so this affair started in the workplace. Michael really liked this judge, and the judge loved him back. She was willing to take their relationship to the next level, but what she did not know was that Michael had reunited with his wife Leanne, and that she was pregnant. If the judge had known that, their affair would have ended right away. So, Michael Fletcher decides to take his wife Leanne out of the picture, because of course he would want to do that because he is a piece of crap. He did this by returning to his home with Leanne and acting as the perfect doting husband. Then he suggested that he and Leanne go to a shooting range so he could teach her how to use a gun. Now, this was a surprising event because according to Leanne's parents, she hated guns. According to Michael, after their visit to the gun range, they had returned home and Michael had been cleaning his loaded gun. Michael had said that Leanne wanted to look at the gun and that he had handed it to her, and then she had accidentally shot herself. Leanne had died as a result. Now, this case went to trial, and eventually, through forensic evidence and testimony from the judge with whom he was having an affair, Michael Fletcher was convicted of second-degree murder, and he received a life sentence. I'm sure Michael Fletcher is using his lawyer expertise in prison to make friends with other inmates. Good riddance. So, while I was considering making a full video about this case of Michael Fletcher and Leanne Fletcher from Michigan, and I was Googling both of their names for more information, I came across another case of a murdered woman, another case of a beautiful woman murdered by her boyfriend, another case where the victim's name was also Leanne Fletcher. And that is the case I take a closer look at today. This is the case of Leanne Fletcher from North Carolina and the man who has been charged in her murder, John J. Tolson. Amanda Leanne Fletcher Hartleben was born on July 28, 1981. Leanne was murdered July 25, 2020, at the age of 38. She was only a few days away from her 39th birthday. Leanne was a native of North Carolina and was born in Dare County to mother Mary Ann and father Mark. Dare County is the easternmost county in the state of North Carolina. Dare County is named after Virginia Dare, the first child born in the Americas to English parents, who was born within the county's current borders. The town that Leanne called home at the time of her death was Kitty Hawk, located in Dare County and on the outer banks of North Carolina, along the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. Leanne came from an extensive family full of aunts, uncles, cousins, and plenty of other relatives and friends. She loved them dearly, and they loved her back. Leanne's Facebook profile stated that she was, quote, seventh generation Dare County. She listed her interests as cooking, genealogy, traveling, surfing, sightseeing, hunting, fishing, and gardening, among others. Leanne was a mother of 2 children, and at the time of her death, her children were aged 14 and 6. In Kitty Hawk, Leanne lived in a cute and cozy house with a pretty steepled roofline, ivy-covered exterior, and a white picket fence. She did the best she could, making the house a comfortable home for herself and for her children. Family and friends described Leanne as a selfless mother, daughter, sister, cousin, and friend who always had a smile on her face. Leanne loved the outdoors, especially surf fishing. She was an avid hunter and fisher. Generally, if it was a typical Outer Banks outdoor activity, she loved it. She was also known to her friends by the nickname of Martha Stewart due to her love of baking, gardening, entertaining, and crafts. Leanne especially loved to decorate for Christmas. Her family and friends stated that she would do anything for one of her family members or friends. She was an incredible woman of strength and love, and the love for her children always came before anything else. But the story of Leanne's life began its tragic, drawn-out end on Monday, July 20th, 2020. On that day, Leanne's children were away at a family member's house. That afternoon, Leanne had been making posts on her Facebook page. They would be her last posts. She had posted that she had been fishing, and she made some other funny comments. Nothing she posted, however, pointed to anything ominous on the horizon. Exactly 1 month earlier, on June 20th, 2020, another post on Leanne's Facebook page had updated her friends that her relationship status had changed and that she was now in a relationship with a man named Jay Tolson. And on July 17th, only 3 days prior to the last day she would make a post on Facebook, Leanne had made the comment of just one word, handsome, on Jay's most recent Facebook profile picture. So who is Jay Tolson? According to what I could find, Jay Tolson worked as a cook at Rusty's Surf and Turf restaurant in North Carolina, and he also worked in construction. At the time of Leanne's death, Jay was 28 years old. Remember when I mentioned that Leanne was a very giving and generous person? Well, that's how Jay had come into Leanne's life in a more significant way. According to family, in early to mid-June, Leanne had learned that her friend, Jay Tolson, needed a place to stay. So she had invited him to stay at her home. At first, their relationship was merely friendly, but within a couple weeks, it had become romantic. And as June turned into July, Leanne and Jay were in a relationship. But it was not a good relationship. According to family, by July 20th, things had taken a drastic turn in Leanne's home. According to family, a neighbor of Leanne stated that he had witnessed Leanne and Jay having arguments. He also had stated that Jay had confronted him when he had come into Leanne's house to retrieve mail that she had collected for him, a normal and an innocent practice on the part of Leanne's neighbor. That neighbor had further stated that he had seen Jay abusing Leanne's dog in the past. Another witness who had interacted with Jay Tolson made the following statement. The witness had interacted with Jay on or around Jay's last day of work and around the time Leanne had made her last posts on Facebook. The witness said of Jay, quote, "He's been acting very strange lately. He would call Leanne just to swear at her and call her names. I don't know what his deal is, but he fucked up royally this time. He was angry as fuck at her, telling me he was going to beat her ass when they got home. He'd been drinking all day. He was a total asshole to her because he had left his phone in her truck." Later, Leanne's family would confirm that it had seemed that her relationship with Jay was at its end around July 20th. Leanne's cousin would later say that Leanne had thrown Jay out of her house completely on Monday, July 20th, packing up his things and putting them outside on her porch. And indeed, as shown in a video taken by a private investigator after Leanne's death, Jay's clothes were indeed left on her porch. In fact, the last time anyone had heard from Leanne was that same day. The last call made from Leanne's phone was 4:46 p.m. on Monday, July 20th. She had called a close friend. After that call, Leanne's phone was inactive for 24 hours until a 1-minute incoming phone call was made to her phone the next day on Tuesday, July 21st at 5:12 p.m. But Leanne had not answered. Around 12 hours later, after that incoming call to Leanne's phone, according to a witness interviewed by a private investigator, Jay Tolson made a phone call. It was now Wednesday, July 22nd at 4 a.m., and Jay had tried calling a friend who did not answer their phone. That person had returned Jay's phone call 4.5 hours later at 8:30 a.m. that morning. And to a private investigator, the person gave a statement that Jay was, quote, crying, stating that he had found Leanne and that she had had blood coming out of her nose. He said that he had found her in the bathtub. The witness went on to say that Jay stated that he didn't know what to do and that he was planning to leave. Jay had stated to the witness, "I don't want to be blamed for this." The witness had said back to Jay, "What am I supposed to tell you, Jay? I'm not 911. Call 911, dude." Nearly 1 hour later, Jay Tolson finally makes a call to the emergency line 911 at 9:24 a.m. It was the morning of Wednesday, July 22nd.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
990 West Kitty Hawk Road.
What's your name?
Jay.
And what's the phone number that you're calling me from? And tell me exactly what's happened.
My friend, she's laying in the tub. She won't wake up. I think she fell last night. I'm not sure. There's blood coming out of her nose, but I can't get her to wake up.
Okay. Do you think she
Still
fell?
breathing really heavily.
Do you think she fell?
Yeah, she had been drinking. She fell in the kitchen.
How old is she?
I think she's like 38.
Okay.
She's breathing really loudly. I just can't get her to wake up.
Okay, are you all right? And you said she is breathing?
Yeah.
And you said there's bleeding coming out of her mouth?
Out of her nose a little bit.
Okay. All right, and we've sent the paramedics to help you now. Just stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
Okay.
All right, and don't move her unless she's in danger, and don't split any injuries, okay? Just I'm going to stay on the line with you as long as I can. Just watch her very closely and look for any changes, okay?
Okay. Leanne.
Does she respond to you when you ask her, when you talk to her?
No.
Okay.
She shuffled once.
Has she moved at all?
She shuffled a little bit, but then she started convulsing a minute ago, and I pulled her up to make sure she wasn't going to throw up.
Mm-hmm.
No, she's stuck.
Okay.
She's drooling a lot.
Engine 13 acknowledged and interrupt.
Kitty Hawk police and paramedics arrived on the scene to Leanne's house shortly after the 911 call was made. Leanne Fletcher was found unresponsive in a dry bathtub in her bathroom. She was sitting in the tub with her head resting on her chest. She obviously needed medical care urgently. Leanne was unresponsive, but she was breathing, and efforts were made to get her into stable condition. As Leanne was transported out of her home, the paramedics initially used a bag and a mask to provide oxygen because they were unable to intubate her. But during transport, she began to bleed from her mouth and nose, and therefore air was not getting in. The paramedics made an incision in her neck to allow for oxygen to enter in that manner. Leanne was airlifted to Norfolk General Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia for treatment. The medical notes about her condition remarked that Leanne's jaw was rigid and unmovable, and that she was bleeding from her mouth and nose. The doctors also noted extensive bruising on Leanne's shoulders, arms, breasts, and abdomen. The doctors would also soon determine that she had significant swelling in her brain. In the hospital in Norfolk, Virginia, far from her cozy home in Kitty Hawk, Leanne Fletcher fell into a coma. And she was alone. Because neither Jay Tolson nor Kitty Hawk police immediately notified Leanne's family about what had happened to her or that she was hurt and receiving medical treatment. It took them 24 hours to find out. On Thursday, July 23rd, the day after Leanne had arrived to the hospital in Virginia, her family was finally notified as to what happened. Jay had not contacted them at all. Upon their arrival to the hospital and seeing Leanne's condition, her family knew that something was very, very wrong. To them, her extensive injuries did not seem the result of a simple accident in the home. And after speaking with a doctor treating Leanne who advised them that Leanne's injuries seemed to be caused from being struck rather than from a fall, the family immediately contacted the Kitty Hawk Police Department, demanding an investigation be opened into the cause of Leanne's injuries. Meanwhile, Jay Tolson was still in Kitty Hawk. He had not gone into work as regularly scheduled that Wednesday morning, the day that he called 911, and Leanne had been flown to Virginia. However, he did go into work the following day, Thursday, the very same day Leanne's family had finally been notified and had gone to be with Leanne in the hospital. According to family, Jay's coworker made the following statement to a private investigator about Jay's demeanor that day. He said, quote, "I know for a fact they got physical. He admitted it to me while we were working, and he started crying. He never once said her head was caved in, just lied and said she OD'd. I told him to turn himself in. He keeps lying to me. He told me she ate a whole bottle of muscle relaxers and slipped in her bathtub." As you know from listening to the 911 call I played earlier, this isn't exactly what he told the 911 operator. In fact, Jay's story about what had happened to Leanne just kept changing. These are just a few of the noted explanations of what happened out of Jay's mouth to police and various witnesses. He said she had fallen in the bathtub and injured herself, although there had been no indication that Leanne had attempted to take a bath. He said that she had fallen in the kitchen the night before and had injured herself there. He said she had been drinking the night before and had gone to take a bath, and he didn't see her again until the next morning, where he had found her in the bathroom. And he allegedly said what he had told to his coworker, Leanne had taken a bottle of muscle relaxers and passed out in the bathtub. To Leanne's family, there was one main contributing factor to Leanne's condition, and that was caused by the man who lived with her, Jay Tolson, her most recent housemate and boyfriend. And they believed that Jay was the person most likely to have hit Leanne and caused her multiple injuries. However, the Kitty Hawk Police Department was not so sure. According to sources, the police had initially interviewed Jay Tolson after Leanne was found unresponsive in her home, but had released him without any charges. After receiving calls from Leanne's infuriated family after they had seen Leanne for themselves at the hospital on Thursday, on Friday, July 24th, the Kitty Hawk Police Department returned to Leanne's house with a family member. The police collected a blood-stained comforter, sheet, and pillow. However, according to Leanne's family, the house was not treated as a crime scene, and Leanne's SUV was not searched. They reported that no forensic testing was done at all. And according to an employee of the police department, the incident report itself did not come out until Friday the 24th, when the chief of police finally decided that the case deserved more attention. On Friday, July 24th, the Kitty Hawk Police Incident Report read that Leanne had suffered a, quote, assault inflicting serious injury, F for felony. However, that report would be changed in the following month. Stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, the family's attentions were solely focused on Leanne and their hope and prayer that she would survive her injuries. Unfortunately, she did not. And after the attempts of the doctors in the hospital, Leanne passed away on Saturday, July 25th, 5 days after her last phone communication with a friend, and 3 days after she was found in her home. Leanne left behind family, friends, and 2 children. After Leanne's death, her family sensed no urgency coming from the Kitty Hawk Police Department in investigating what had happened at her home. According to family, the police did not take Leanne's cell phone for evidence, nor did they seem concerned about the large blood stains on Leanne's bed. Leanne's mother and Leanne's cousin decided to be proactive in the case, and they hired a private investigator to assist in finding the truth surrounding the death of Leanne. The private investigator asked questions of the police department but was met with resistance. So the next step was for the private investigator, or the PI, to go to the crime scene itself, Leanne's home. According to family, the police had had access to the home for days since the incident, but all that had been collected by the police were those 3 items: a sheet, a comforter, and a pillow, and no other crime scene processing had taken place. The PI arrived at Leanne's house on Wednesday, July 29th, and documented the following evidence. Extensive blood stains on Leanne's mattress and pillow. What appeared to be blood smears on the bedroom wall. A bloody shirt. Blood on the bedroom floor. Blood on the bedroom door and knob, blood on the living room coffee table, and various items from Leanne's car. From their examination of the house, it was obvious to them that Leanne had likely bled profusely in her bedroom, or at least someone had. After gathering this evidence, the PI met with the Kitty Hawk Police Department on July 31st to share the findings. The family hoped this would move the police to process the home for themselves, for evidence of a physical altercation between Leanne and her attacker. But while they were waiting, the PI planned to follow all leads and to contact all individuals who had information or direct contact with the family's potential suspect, Jay Tolson. The family also planned to have an estate for wrongful death opened to gain access to further information from the police. And importantly, the PI planned to turn over any evidence they found in their investigation to the Kitty Hawk Police Department. So they turned over Leanne's cell phone, a sheet found in Leanne's car that may have had a spot of blood, and a woman's shirt found in her bedroom apparently saturated with dried blood. And for the next 19 days, the PI went on to investigate the case further. Both the PI and Leanne's family waited for the Kitty Hawk police to respond to their requests for updates in the investigation. But for 4 weeks, the police department did not return to Leanne's house to do any further forensic testing. And by July 13th, the official police incident report on Leanne's injuries had changed to assault on a female, M for misdemeanor. It had been downgraded from a felony to a misdemeanor. The family wondered why the downgrade. It was unclear. During this time period, Leanne's family publicized what had happened to Leanne as far and as wide as they could. They created the Justice for Leanne hashtag and used it on social media, speaking about her death and what they had found in their own private investigation. They spoke to the media, and they kept questioning the police department for updates about the case. But for the most part, the police were staying silent. But the work of the PI continued. The PI had the blood stains in Leanne's home analyzed. Using Blue Star Forensic Blood Reagent, the house was tested for blood on the walls and on the doors. The results were positive for several areas of blood stains throughout the home. Those areas included the bedroom walls and doors, hallways, the bathroom entrance, living room couch, and floor. The blood spots and stains lit up with a bright blue color when photographed. Further, the following objects in the home were found to have blood on them: a towel in the laundry area saturated with blood, and blood was also found on the washer and dryer. Blood was found on the kitchen floor in a significant amount and in a smear pattern. Blood found in the bathroom sink and on the counter. It was found on the bathroom cabinet. It was found on the handles in the bathtub, and a small amount in the bottom of the tub itself. When the family obtained access to the 911 call made from Leanne's home, they noted that Jay Tolson had identified himself as a friend in the call. However, they knew that he had been in a romantic relationship with Leanne and that he lived with her in the house. After their analysis of the blood found in Leanne's home, the PI continued to work on the case, talking to witnesses, monitoring social media, requesting public information from the Kitty Hawk Police Department and the Dare County government, and handing over any information they found to the police. During this entire period, Leanne's home remained locked and empty and still unprocessed by the police department. The family created a YouTube channel titled Justice for Leanne and uploaded a video on September 8, 2020, detailing the timeline surrounding Leanne's death and the extensive physical evidence they had collected from Leanne's home and interviews that they had had with witnesses. From the video, it was apparent that the family was frustrated with the lack of movement in the case by the Kitty Hawk Police Department, and they made their frustrations known on social media. Was there some bad blood between Leanne's family and the Kitty Hawk Police Department? Did that increase the family's frustration? It seems so. In the recorded meeting between the PI and the Kitty Hawk Police Department on July 31st, which was also posted on the Justice for Leanne YouTube channel. Both the Kitty Hawk Chief of Police and the Assistant District Attorney expressed previous issues with members of Leanne's family. From what I gathered online, it seems as if some members of Leanne's family had previously been in jail. Because of this, the Kitty Hawk police may have thought that the family already had a level of distrust for their police department. Allegedly, Leanne's father had been arrested and imprisoned in the mid-90s. Additionally, Leanne's brother had been jailed for destroying property while under the influence of drugs. He had gone to prison for 5 years in the mid-2000s. And in their July 31st meeting with the PI, the Kitty Hawk police thought it was important that the PI knew the history of Leanne's family's previous interactions with the police. And they also wanted to make it known that Leanne's family owned a vehicle service station that serviced their police vehicles. But I would argue why. What was the point? What did all that have to do with Leanne and her case? Kitty Hawk was a small town, and Leanne was 7th generation Dare County after all. She had many family members and many friends. Of course, they may have had their own reasons to interact with the police in previous matters. What did that have to do with Leanne? What did all that have to do with investigating her death? In the recording of the meeting, the chief also wondered aloud where the social media assault had come from, according to his own words, with the family talking on social media. From his point of view, the police department had merely got a call about a paramedic assist, about an intoxicated female in a bathtub. It very much seems as if the police department was unhappy in the backlash they were receiving via social media from supporters of Leanne and her family. The police chief had already felt the brunt of the family's disappointment in the police response to Leanne's case. The chief complained to the PI that Leanne's mother and Leanne's cousin had made personal attacks towards him in the media. In the recording, he complained that it was, quote, too late for the PI to quench the personal attacks towards him. He insinuated that his image had already been torn down in social media. I guess that was unfortunate for the police chief, but they had a citizen, a mother, who was now dead, and her case needed to be thoroughly investigated. On September 15th, Leanne's family sent out a positive update to the media regarding the progress in Leanne's case. Leanne's cousin reported that the family was feeling positive that the case was moving in the right direction and that Leanne would receive justice. She also encouraged people to be open to interviews when contacted by authorities. That's not particularly because the local Kitty Hawk Police Department had started investigating Leanne's death more thoroughly, but by that point, in mid-September, the North Carolina State Police was now working on the case. Leanne's family believed that the case was finally moving in the right direction. And the case was indeed moving forward. On October 13th, Dare County's medical examiner released the results of Leanne's autopsy. They determined that Leanne had died from complications from blunt force trauma to the head. The report also listed liver failure as a contributing factor. Blunt force trauma was the primary cause of her death, but the medical examiner could not determine how that trauma happened. The manner of Leanne's death was undetermined. With this new autopsy information, both Leanne's family and the media pressed the Kitty Hawk Police Department for an official update on the case. To the media, the Kitty Hawk police chief would not comment on specifics about Leanne's case. He did report that they had a person of interest, but that person did not currently face any charges. At that same time, the media also reached out to the district attorney's office, but did not get a response.
And we're back now with a death investigation that has an Outer Banks town talking a lot. Leanne Fletcher was found unresponsive in her home in Kitty Hawk over the summer and died less than a week later. No arrests have been made, and loved ones say that justice for Fletcher has been slow in coming from police. 10 on your side's Chris Horn walks us through the case and the claims.
Leanne Fletcher, and the home where she lived, the home where she died.
She had a personality that, she was a social butterfly. Everyone got along with her.
Leanne was kind-hearted and would help anybody.
Fletcher was last heard from Monday, July 20th, but the 911 call didn't go out until 2 days later. A private investigator familiar with the case says Kitty Hawk police didn't enter the home that day.
The call came in on a Wednesday, and on Friday they finally went to the home.
Fletcher was found Wednesday in a bathtub by medics, barely alive. She was taken to the hospital where she died 3 days later.
The blood evidence in the home did not support a fall in the bathtub.
Lee says inside the home on West Kitty Hawk Road was a bloody pillow, sheet, and comforter. And that's when Lee says local police botched the investigation.
Once they took those items and they found those items, there was an incredible failure of securing the scene.
The medical examiner determined this week that Fletcher died from complications of blunt force trauma to the head as the primary cause, but doesn't say how. I talked Thursday with Kitty Hawk Police Chief Joel Johnson. He declined to respond to the criticism of his department and wouldn't comment on specifics of the case. Police do have a person of interest. He currently faces no charges whatsoever. We attempted to contact that person through social media, as well as a pastor who knows him, but have not heard back. We also reached out to the district attorney's office yesterday and are awaiting a response. You said she was kind-hearted, would help anybody. In this case, do you think that led to her undoing?
Yes. Yes.
Chief Johnson told me Thursday that he wants justice for Leanne just like everyone else, and that those responsible for finding that justice are being extra careful in their investigation. Chris Horn, 10 on your side.
But the family did not have to wait too much longer, because 10 days later, 10 days after the release of the autopsy, Jay Tolson was finally arrested. John J. Curtis Tolson was arrested on October 26, 2020 in Bangor, Maine. Apparently, he had initially traveled from North Carolina to Maine for rehab. His whereabouts had been found out through social media, where someone had posted information that Jay had been sent to the Bangor, Maine rehab by a local North Carolina church. Police in Bangor arrested Jay without incident. The media reported that he had appeared to be living on the streets. Jay Tolson was charged with second-degree murder.
A breakthrough in a murder case on the Outer Banks. A suspect is now in custody in the July death of Leanne Fletcher of Kitty Hawk. Investigative reporter Chris Horn continues his coverage with details on the arrest of her former boyfriend, who is sitting in a jail about 900 miles away.
The Dare County grand jury returned an indictment Monday for second-degree murder against John J. Tolson in the death of Leanne Fletcher. And before the end of the day, police in Bangor, Maine had him in custody. Tolson had been living with Leanne Fletcher in this home on West Kitty Hawk Road. She had met him just 5 weeks earlier.
He had told her that he didn't have a place to live, that he had gotten kicked out of where he was living at. You were more than welcome to stay at the house. And then the relationship became more than just friendship.
But then intimacy turned to fear, and Fletcher put Tolson's belongings outside on the front porch Monday, July 20th.
So Leanne had started packing his stuff and removing his stuff from the home. And that was the last time anybody heard from her.
EMTs discovered her unresponsive in her bathtub 2 days later. It's unclear who called 911 because police and the district attorney are not commenting. A private investigator familiar with the case says the blood evidence in several locations in the home doesn't support a fall in the bathtub. By Saturday, July 25th, Fletcher was dead. The medical examiner says Fletcher's primary cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, but hasn't determined how. Cahoon says Tolson was in Bangor for rehab. Bangor police say they arrested him late Monday afternoon without incident, and that he had appeared to be living on the streets. Cahoon says she and the family are happy he's now off the streets.
Very emotional, and I'm happy, but I'm still sad because it's not going to bring Leanne back.
Again, Tolson is charged with second-degree murder in the death of Leanne Fletcher of Kitty Hawk in July. He's being held in Bangor, Maine, awaiting an extradition hearing. Meanwhile, her cousin says the family does not want to see a plea agreement. They want Tolson to stand trial. Chris Horn, 10 on your side.
Unfortunately, that's where the case remains. Jay has been charged with murder, and Leanne's family has been waiting for a trial for over 2 years. A couple possible trial dates have come and gone, all while Leanne's family anxiously awaits a trial and an outcome. There have been several starts and stops along the way in the judicial process. In July 2022, around the 2-year anniversary of Leanne's death, her cousin recently reported to the media that the family feels like they have been left hanging. She stated that everybody seemed to be passing off the responsibility for the delay, and she went on to say that her faith in the justice system was gone. As to the reason for the delay, one reason given was that the defense was waiting for the availability of an expert witness, and the judge was waiting to set a final date for the trial. I will post any updates on this case when I hear of them. It is important to note that Jay Tolson is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For now, we will keep Leanne's family in our thoughts. May Leanne rest in peace, and may her memory be a blessing to all her loved ones. There is a GoFundMe page still accepting donations in support of Leanne's 2 children. I have linked it in the description, and if I can, this video will be posted as a fundraiser, and any donations will be sent to the GoFundMe. Most of the information I gathered for this video came from the Justice for Leanne YouTube channel, on which is posted a lengthy video including many of the items of evidence gathered by the private investigators that Leanne's family hired. Thank you for your time in watching this video. I know your time is valuable, and I'm glad you chose to spend some of it listening to this story with me. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Until next time, everyone, you know it's rough out there, so please, everyone, take care. Talk to you next time. Bye.